Your Excellency, Mr. Abdullah Shahid, President of the 76th session of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General, Excellencies, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, by the time I finish speaking, close to 5,000 new babies will have entered our troubled world. In fact, the number of babies to be born in the 7 days of this debate is over 3 million. Now, this new crop of humanity and billions more to come in the next 80 years has no voice and no vote at this assembly. Yet it is they, not we, who will live in the future we create here. The task of choosing that future for them lies with us. This assembly is a fork in the road where we must choose between two futures for our children and their children. We must choose for our children a future of zero carbon emissions, or a future of daily climate catastrophes that wipe out crops, homes, cities, and some nations in this room. We must choose for our children a future of solidarity, hospitality, and generosity that transcend borders and national identities in times of global crisis, or a future of greed that hoards life-saving technologies, medicines, and vaccines in one hemisphere, while the other hemisphere is robbed of its raw materials and left perishing. We must choose for our children a future of peace fostered by equitable, sustainable development between North and South, as well as between East and West, or a future of conflicts triggered by the widening economic inequality between rich and poor, men and women, young and old. We must choose for our children a future of good governance delivered through strong democratic institutions that safeguard human rights, uphold the rule of law, and maintain world peace, or a future of corrupt and oppressive governments propped up by proxy wars between developed nations and enabled by a weak and undemocratic United Nations that serves the interests of its Security Council at the expense of its member states' development and inclusion. The place to make that choice is here, and the time to make that choice is now. Here and now, we must move with speed and synergy to pull civilization out of this sinking wreckage. Here and now, we must silence our petty and narrow interests to give voice to our shared desire to build back better and leave no one behind. Here and now, we must answer the 4 crises that are before us: the climate crisis, the COVID crisis, the sustainable development crisis, and the UN governance crisis. Now, the starting points for answering each of these crises are simple. For the climate crisis, the starting point is 3 words: fulfill your pledge. It's been over 10 years since the developed nations that polluted our planet the most pledged $100 billion towards climate mitigation and adaptation. These are nations that tell the rest of us to follow their example, nations that tell us to consider them friends, nations that call us corrupt and untrustworthy when we say one thing and do another.